Maya Carter's grip on the wrench was second nature, a comfort she had known since childhood. Raised in a small Nebraska town, she'd spent more time in her grandfather's auto shop than at playgrounds. The clang of tools and the scent of motor oil were as familiar to her as lullabies. She worked at a local auto shop now, one of the few women in the garage, and by far the most precise. But for some, her presence wasn't just unusual, it was unwelcome. Maya had learned long ago to earn respect through results. Even so, not everyone appreciated her expertise. It was a Thursday morning when everything changed. Maya was beneath a lifted Ford Explorer, replacing a leaky brake line. The job was delicate, requiring steady hands and exact measurements. She'd nearly finished when a colleague, Rick, brushed by her tool tray. Her torque wrench skidded across the floor, hitting the wall. She slid out from under the vehicle, annoyance rising, and retrieved it silently. Rick smirked, clearly amused. "Maybe if you didn't hog all the jobs, the rest of us could work," he muttered loud enough for others to hear. The words burned, but she bit her tongue. The silence that followed was heavy, judgmental. No one spoke in her defense. Maya returned to the repair, tightening the final bolts with forced focus. She'd faced resistance before, but lately it had grown more hostile. Some resented her speed, others her accuracy. What stung most was how quietly the resentment spread. That afternoon, she was called into the manager's office. Bill, the supervisor, didn't meet her eyes. "Some of the guys say you've been confrontational," he began. She blinked. "For finishing jobs?" He sighed. "It's not just that. There's tension. This isn't working out." Just like that, she was fired. There was no warning, no formal write-up, just a vague accusation and a cold dismissal. Maya stood in the parking lot, box of belongings in hand, wrench still in her pocket. She sat in her car, staring at the steering wheel, stunned. It wasn't just a job she lost, it was her identity. She had poured herself into that work, stayed late, skipped breaks, proved herself daily. And still, it hadn't been enough. Her knuckles ached, not from labor, but from the tight fist she held while sitting in that office. She took a breath and finally let the tears fall. Rent was due in 9 days. She had $3,200 in savings, barely enough to float her through the month. The bills weren't the only thing crushing her. It was the shame, the injustice. Maya hadn't done anything wrong, except carry skill in a hand some refused to see as capable. That evening, she paced her tiny apartment. She opened a dusty sketchbook from her closet, flipping through old diagrams. Her grandfather had encouraged her to draw every car part she learned to repair. Over time, those sketches evolved into designs, engine concepts, diagnostic chips, and fuel converters. All of it unpublished. She hadn't looked at the sketches in over a year. Now they felt like fragments of another life. One idea stood out, a self-diagnosing engine chip, able to detect early signs of malfunction and transmit warnings to the driver. She had dreamed it up during a sleepless winter break in community college. No one had ever seen it. Maya closed the book and sat silently, the chip design still in her mind. She'd always thought her ideas were too ambitious, too abstract. But now, with nothing to lose, she began to wonder, what if the garage floor was never her ceiling? The next morning she posted on LinkedIn, "Fired for holding a wrench in the wrong hands. Time to build my own table." She didn't expect a response. But an hour later, her childhood friend Jordan messaged her. He was now an engineering professor in Chicago. That post? It hit. "Come to the TechBridge Innovation Expo this weekend. You'll meet the right people. Bring your ideas." Maya hesitated. "I don't have anything real, just sketches." Jordan replied, "That's how real things start. Just bring yourself." She sat back in her chair, staring at the message. A spark, small but growing, lit inside her. 3 days later, she boarded a Greyhound bus to Chicago with a backpack full of mechanical drawings and an oversized coat. She felt completely out of place at the expo. Tables with sleek prototypes, people in tailored suits, monitors flashing with startup presentations. Everywhere she turned, there was polish and professionalism. Maya wore boots, still marked with grease stains and jeans that had seen better days. She hovered in a corner, unsure where to stand. Then an older woman with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes walked up to her. "What's in the bag?" she asked. Maya replied quietly, "Just ideas." The woman's name was Eleanor Grant, a prominent venture capitalist known for backing unlikely creators. Maya nervously laid out her sketches on a nearby table. Eleanor's eyes scanned the pages with surprising intensity. "You built these designs yourself?" Maya nodded. "Most are just concepts," she said. Eleanor held up the drawing of the self-diagnosing chip. "This one, it's smart. Smarter than some things I've seen funded." Maya blinked, unsure what to say. "Thanks," she mumbled. Eleanor handed her a business card. "Come see me Monday. We'll talk possibilities." Maya clutched the card tightly. For the first time in days, she smiled. The apartment Jordan let her crash in was barely more than a room with a futon, but that night it felt like a palace. Maya stared at the business card again and again, trying not to get her hopes up. She opened her laptop and began refining her sketches. For hours, she added details, adjusted circuits, and reimagined her chip as a real-world device. Her heart beat faster with each revision. She'd never felt this kind of excitement, not even during her best days at the garage. She worked until sunrise, driven not by pressure but by belief for the first time. Monday came, and she stood outside Eleanor's glass office building, nerves rising. Inside, everything was gleaming chrome and hushed voices. When she entered Eleanor's office, the older woman greeted her like an old colleague. "Let's talk about that chip," Eleanor said. Maya opened her folder, explaining how it worked. Sensors embedded into engine lines, AI-powered alerts, real-time feedback through a phone app. She spoke without notes, her passion carrying her through. Eleanor leaned back when she finished. "I want to help fund this. 50,000 to prototype. If it works, we'll go public with you as lead inventor. Deal?" Maya's breath caught. I don't have a company or a team," Eleanor smiled. "Then let's build one." She pushed forward the contract. Maya's fingers trembled as she signed it. Just 3 days ago, she'd been unemployed and uncertain. Now she was funded, legitimized. That night, she called her grandfather's old number out of habit, though he'd passed the year before. The voicemail still played. "Hey, it's Grandpa Lou. You know what to do." She smiled, left a message. "I think you were right. I'm not just good with tools. I might actually build something big." She ended the call in tears. Over the next few days, she set up a workbench in a small rented garage Eleanor's firm provided. It wasn't fancy, but it reminded her of the shop she grew up in. She ordered parts, built a prototype frame, and reached out to Jordan for coding assistance. The chip was coming together. Piece by piece, screw by screw, Maya was building her future. Local mechanics she once worked with now sent texts. "Saw you on LinkedIn? Congrats. Didn't know you had it in you." She ignored most of them. Her eyes stayed fixed on the prototype. She wasn't working for applause anymore. One evening, she looked out the garage window at the fading sun and whispered, "You lost your job, but you didn't lose yourself." It was true. In losing the place that never valued her, she found the spark to create something the industry had never seen. She pulled out the wrench that never left her pocket, placed it beside the chip, and smiled. The tool that got her fired was now the symbol of her rebirth. Her fingers curled around the device, and she whispered again, "You're not done yet." The next chapter was just beginning, and it was hers to write. Maya's first prototype worked, at least on the bench. The real test was putting it into an engine and letting it speak for itself. She installed the diagnostic chip on an old pickup truck Eleanor's firm had provided. The software Jordan helped develop allowed the chip to communicate with a mobile app. Maya held her breath as the engine turned over. Within seconds, the app detected a misfire in cylinder 3. She double-checked the engine. The chip was right. Her fingers shook. She hadn't just drawn it, hadn't just dreamed it. She had built something that actually worked. It felt unbelievable. Word spread quickly inside Eleanor's network. Investors, engineers, and startup advisors reached out within days. Maya was overwhelmed but focused. She named the system Pulse Chip and registered the LLC as TalkTech. She brought Jordan on full-time and hired 2 female engineering students from the local university. The garage transformed into a lab, a place of innovation and empowerment. Every tool, every chip, every test carried her fingerprints. Each success proved the garage that fired her had only clipped her wings. Now she was soaring. The same people who once dismissed her were watching. Maya was no longer invisible. A local delivery company called Swift Haul heard about her early trials. They ran a small fleet of trucks and agreed to install Pulse Chip on 3 of their vehicles. Maya knew the risks. If the chips failed, her name could be ruined before the company even launched. But the results were astounding. The chips flagged overheating issues, faulty sensors, and worn belts days before drivers noticed. Repairs were made in advance. Swift Haul reported fewer delays, lower repair bills, and safer trips. They immediately ordered 20 more chips. The news traveled fast. Suddenly, Maya wasn't just a mechanic with a dream. She was a disruptor. TalkTech's website crashed from too many visitors. Orders came from Florida, Arizona, even as far as Alaska. Maya had to pause requests until production could scale. Eleanor introduced her to a manufacturing partner in Milwaukee. Maya toured the facility, inspecting every station, asking technical questions that surprised the engineers. When the plant manager offered to walk her through the basics, she grinned. "I know what torque ratios are. I used to fix carburetors before I could drive." They didn't question her expertise again. The first batch of 100 Pulse chips rolled out within 3 weeks, ready for deployment nationwide. Media outlets picked up her story. Fired mechanic reinvents auto diagnostics. TalkTech from garage floor to industry force. She was invited to speak on panels and webinars. During one interview, a host asked, "Didn't anyone ever tell you you couldn't do this?" Maya smiled. "They didn't have to, they just stared like I didn't belong. So I stopped asking for a seat and started building my own table." The clip went viral. Maya's words echoed through online communities, especially among young women in STEM. High schools reached out, asking if she would speak to their students. She never said no. One afternoon, Maya received an unexpected email. Rick, the mechanic who kicked her tool tray months ago, had sent a message. "I saw the news. Guess I underestimated you. Hope you're doing well." She stared at the screen, emotionless. There was no bitterness left, only clarity. Rick hadn't fired her. He hadn't stopped her. He'd only shown her who she couldn't trust. She closed the email without replying. That wrench she once clutched in fear had become her weapon of change. Maya no longer needed to explain herself. Her results spoke louder than any apology ever could. She kept moving forward. TalkTech moved into a larger facility in Detroit, the heart of American auto history. Maya walked into the new space. 20 employees, expanded production, and a training program for women entering automotive tech. Her dream of an inclusive garage was becoming real. They didn't just make chips, they built futures. One wall held framed sketches from her old notebook. Another displayed customer thank you letters, and at the center hung her original wrench, now in a shadow box. "This got me fired," the plaque read, "and that was the best thing that ever happened to me." Visitors stopped and stared every time. An email arrived from the National Transportation Alliance. They wanted Maya to present Pulse Chip at their annual convention. Her slot. Prime time. She stood behind the podium, a large screen behind her, displaying real-time diagnostics from a test vehicle. She explained how Pulse Chip prevented breakdowns, saved lives, and reduced emissions. The room applauded. Industry leaders approached her after with offers to collaborate. Some asked if she was open to acquisition. Maya politely declined. "We're not done growing yet," she said. TalkTech was hers, and she wasn't giving it away, not until her vision, her full vision, was realized on her terms. Back in Detroit, TalkTech launched a new initiative, Wrenchworks, a mentorship and scholarship program for women in trades. The idea came after Maya spoke at a local high school. A girl named Tasha approached her, wrench in hand. "My uncle says girls don't fix cars. But I saw your video. Can I learn?" Maya hugged her. "Of course, that wrench in your hand, it's powerful. Let's show the world." Wrenchworks enrolled 30 students its first year, pairing them with master mechanics and giving them hands-on experience. The program received federal grant support. Maya smiled, because the future wasn't just tech, it was people. Investors urged her to shift focus, to scale fast and think global. Maya listened, nodded, and then did things her way. She expanded carefully, prioritizing integrity. Over speed, TalkTech grew into 3 states, Michigan, Illinois, and Ohio, each facility doubling as a training center. The press called her the reluctant CEO. But she didn't mind. Titles never mattered to her. Results did. Every morning, she walked the floor with her team. She knew their names, their stories. Some were single mothers, others returning veterans. They all carried something in their hands, a wrench, a laptop, a scanner. Maya made sure they were seen. 2 years after the day she was fired, TalkTech surpassed 10,000 pulse chip units sold. Vehicle downtime dropped 32% on average for clients using the system. Insurance companies began offering discounts to customers with Maya's chip installed. The auto industry could no longer ignore her. She was invited to meet with top manufacturers in Detroit. During one meeting, an executive asked if she could imagine her chip in every new vehicle. Maya replied, "I didn't build this to imagine. I built it to happen." The room nodded in approval. Negotiations began that afternoon. TalkTech was no longer the outsider. It was the future. She finally visited her grandfather's old home. The shed still stood, dust-covered, filled with old parts and memories. Maya stepped inside, running her hand along the worn bench where she learned to hold a wrench. She whispered, "I did it, Grandpa. I turned that pain into purpose." Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't from grief. They were from pride. She pulled a new wrench from her bag and laid it beside the old one. Generations had passed through these walls. Now another chapter had begun. She smiled, took a deep breath, and stepped back into the sunlight. A documentary crew began filming TalkTech's journey. Maya initially declined, but changed her mind when she realized it wasn't about her. It was about visibility. Young girls needed to see women in garages, in boardrooms, at tool benches. The film aired nationwide, and messages poured in from every state. Parents thanked her. Teens sent photos of themselves fixing bikes and building circuits. Maya watched it once, quietly, and cried when the final frame showed her wiping grease off her hands and saying, "I wasn't supposed to be here, but here I am." That single line captured the essence of her entire fight. Maya was nominated for several innovation awards and eventually won the National Inventor's Medal. She accepted it in a simple black jumpsuit, refusing to hide who she was. "This award isn't just for invention," she said at the podium. "It's for every time someone told us we couldn't, we can, we did, and we will." The crowd gave a standing ovation. Eleanor, seated in the front row, clapped with tears in her eyes. Maya met her afterward, hugged her tightly. "You saw me before the world did," she whispered. Eleanor nodded. "Because the world needed what only you could build." One night, Maya sat alone in her Detroit apartment, sketchbook open. She wasn't designing a product. She was writing a letter to her younger self. "Dear Maya, you will be broken. You'll be underestimated, discarded. But don't let go of the wrench. It's more than a tool. It's your proof. The world won't give you a place, but you'll build one anyway. And someday, girls you'll never meet will walk into garages that once shut you out. They'll walk in like they belong, because you stayed. Because you believed. She closed the book smiling. The fight had been worth every scar. The Talk Tech campus eventually added a museum. It displayed the first pulse chip, the original sketches, press clippings, and a timeline of milestones. But the most visited item was the framed wrench, the one she had in her pocket the day she was fired. Below it read a simple plaque. The day they said you didn't belong was the day you began changing everything. Students took pictures beside it. Guests stared at it in silence. Because that wrench was no longer a symbol of loss. It was a symbol of what happens when someone dares to keep building, even after the doors close. Maya never forgot the pain, but she refused to let it define her. Instead, she turned it into blueprints, into chips, into opportunity. She gave the world something greater than a product. She gave it proof that potential can't be silenced. And every time she passed by that golden-framed wrench, she nodded once and whispered to herself, "They tried to bury me, but I was the seed." Then she picked up her tools and went right back to work.